You're writing user stories, but how do you know if they're any good? We are doing the User Story Challenge. Hello and welcome back to the Software Innovation Lab. If you're new here, my name is Dale Richards. I'm a software innovator from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I love building software that changes the world. I'm taking a SaaS product from concept to cash, and I'm bringing you with me for the ride. If you want to build apps, grow your SaaS business, and make money doing cool software entrepreneur-related stuff, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell. And today we are having the User Story Challenge with our special guest, Todd Ericksen, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So Todd and I actually go way back. We both have worked on software solutions together, and Todd is the master at writing user stories. More particularly, Todd is really good at calling out user stories that are awful, and which is why he's here. So by special invitation. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of recap some of the basic guidance on user stories for people that are joining for the first time. Yeah. And so some people will have seen some of these ideas and guidance before. And then we're going to look at some of your good and bad examples, or some of your bad examples.
Sure.
Your bad ones.
Great.
And then we have some audience participation from Tiff, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her solution and what she's working on. And then we'll play our challenge.
All right.
Okay. Well, then we'll have the rules to the challenge, and then we'll play the challenge.
Great.
So, quick recap. A user story. We're talking about these really brief statements that we use to describe like individual steps through the user experience. So what we're trying to do is define what the user needs to do or accomplish in the app and for what purpose. And that statement will tell the UX designer how to mock up wireframes, mock-ups, high-fidelity mocks. And also it'll tell the developers exactly how they should be building these features. It's really important to have clear, unarguable user stories so that you can get good estimates on how much it'll cost to build your app or your SaaS platform. So that's why we're doing this. Okay, so a user story is a brief statement describing what action a user wants to take to achieve an outcome. And the formula that I think you're using the same formula, aren't you? It's like
there's a few you can use, but this is like the one.
The one. I joke about the only true way to create value for other people. But anyway, this is one formula that Todd and I both like to use. So as a type of user, or you can also say like as a user that has experienced a certain event or that has progressed to a certain point in the UX, in the user experience, I want to do A so that B. And A is really the task that the user is trying to accomplish, and B is the kind of the intent or the outcome, like the reason why they want to accomplish that thing. We want user stories to be short, clear, and describe a single specific action. And we're going to show some really fun examples about people that don't do that very well. So let's kind of look at some of those. Okay, so do you want to walk us through some of your
fun
examples?
I think I sent this one in.
Yeah.
So as a user, I want to log in so that I can get in. And so there's some circular reasoning here. I think this is a good example of when the formula is the job to do, not the actual communication. So if you're just filling in blanks like a Mad Lib, like there's a blank for so that, I'll just put something there. The formula is so that you can think about the value that they're getting, and you can think about what they're doing.
Not so that you can say that you filled out
in the formula. Yeah. So this one is potentially too generic unless it applies to any user. We just say user. And login is pretty vague. Like, what does that actually mean? What kind of login is this? Am I creating an account for the company? Am I using a different kind of authentication? And then the so that is, it's just not very specific.
So I can get in. Yeah, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
You gave me a great idea. Next time we should play user story Mad Libs. Like, we're just like, give me a noun. Give me an adjective. We're going to put them in. Yes. Fun. Okay, all right. We'll do that next time. So, okay, all right. So, too vague. How about this one?
Okay. As a super admin, I want to run reports so that I can see trends. So this one is just, again, really vague, and it's not, doesn't seem to be some discrete thing. This is more like an epic. So an epic is really describing a goal that a user has in a more high-level scenario, right? So this is actually not a terrible epic. It still could be improved, but it's basically identifying an area of functionality that probably has a lot of tasks in it that if we do all of them, we'll really have a chunk of value that people can benefit from.
So it's kind of like a parent node,
Yeah.
or like a super, it's
Yeah.
like a super categorization of lots of individual stories. So like you could say, like epic is kind of the overall broad category of what the user is trying to accomplish, and then the user stories walk through step by step.
Yep.
So, and it's epic. Okay, so as a super admin, I want to run reports so that I can see trends. So tell us more about more requirements in this so that.
Okay, so sometimes we like to cram more than we should into a user story. And so it might start out okay, but then we just kind of keep going, and there's invisible requirements that are in parts that shouldn't be. So this is an example. As a customer, I want to save an item to my favorites list. So far, so good.
Okay.
So that later I can save a copy, print, export, or email the list for other uses.
It's so painful to read. And did you write this?
I wrote it.
You did write it?
I didn't write it like for real. I wrote it to be bad.
Okay, all right. I was just like, Todd, where are you getting this from? So we had a client last year, and they had user stories that had come from another author, right? So they basically they worked with us for a little while. They've gone to a larger company to get some user stories written out and to get like everything mapped out and kind of button up the scope of this
ready
project.
to go.
And then they came back to us and give us these user stories to execute. And what's difficult about it is that if you have a user story that has more requirements in the so that, it's like, even though that's not part of A, because we're really talking about A, right? In the formula, A is the part that we're saying, this is what this story is about, so that we can mock it up and so we can develop it. Yep. And if you have all these other requirements that are kind of hinted at, then it gives the client or the customer or the product owner, whoever it is that you're working with, license to say, but it's written right here that you're supposed to have done all this. Like, but that's part of just the reasoning or the motivation. That's not part of this requirement. So, you don't want to hint at features that really aren't part of your scope.
Yep.
By just kind of like referencing them casually in the B in the so that. So, how about another one?
Sure. Okay, so this is similar problem. As a librarian, I want to be notified about new titles so that I can get all messages in the way I prefer to, and can change them to text, voice, mail, email, or other preferences that I have, and on the schedule that I want.
I would hate to be the designer or the developer. Mostly, I would hate to be the product manager working on a solution like that. Because you'd be like, hello, here's a blank check. Can you just sign this blank check for me? Then we'll take care of all of this for you. Yeah.
Sometimes we're motivated by being more clear, and so we use more words. But when we use words that stray away from the construct we're talking about, it's not helping anyone. It's making it far, far worse. The goal of a user story is to communicate. And really, I mean, this whole thing is about creating the perfect user story. But really, the best user stories are just enough information to not have confusion.
Yeah.
It's not a novel, right? It's not trying to minimize the number of words, but you are trying to communicate. And so sometimes in the desire to communicate well, we use way too many words, and we stray off course of what we're actually talking about.
And then the opposite risk is that you will not communicate enough, right? So that you'll use too few words. And so you really have to get good at dialing it in like, hey, this is a clear, precise user story. No more, no less.
Yeah.
This is exactly what needs to be built.
Yeah.
Coming up next, it's the audience participation part. We're going to give you feedback on your user stories. Click on a link in the video description and submit your user stories to us for the next user story challenge. And we'll give you feedback on the user stories that you've written. We've got some great user-contributed user stories from Tiff Polmatier from Two Ferry, the ride-sharing app with 2 drivers. That's coming up next on Swattage, the Software Innovation Lab. Join us again. Videos are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 noon Mountain Time.